All right, Dujuan, glad to see you. It's been a while. Met you, it's been 2-3 years ago. We
That's
did a
some
little
time, yeah.
talk down at the Boys and Girls Club in Paducah. So Dujuan Thomas, right?
Yep, that's it.
So we wanted to bring you in because we're trying to let people see inside the stories of other people's life. Sometimes when we're doing, when people just do the same thing every day, you don't realize that. I've been in different situations where people just use different lingo and different things that are, only in that particular situation. They don't even realize it. So the podcast we're doing is trying to reach in and see kind of what you guys do in just different stories. So, starting off, what are you working on currently?
Definitely. So I'm Paducah City Commissioner. There's 4 commissioners, and I was elected in November. So I serve the city of Paducah. And one thing I like to tell people, we're not councilmen. Sometimes people confuse it with a city councilman, and we're not that. Councilmen are under a mayor, whereas commissioners are equal power to a mayor when it comes to decision making. So we are basically all the CEOs of the city.
Okay. So I remember seeing your face everywhere in Paducah. And it seems like there was a lot of talk. I don't remember exactly what everybody was. Of course, I'm not necessarily directly in Paducah anymore. However, Paducah affects me quite a bit because I have a business very near. So, I try to keep up. But I did see, did you have any, how did the rate, am I wrong to say that you ran twice? Is that right?
Yeah. So
okay.
I ran 3 times total this far. I ran for mayor in 2020. So I was 21, came home, COVID shut down the world. I ended up being stuck in Paducah and saw there was a mayor election, ran for that as a write-in candidate, just to have a platform to speak up about real issues. Because I felt like the people running weren't talking about the real things like our sidewalks, our south side and things like that. And then I ran for city commission that following election cycle, and I missed that one by like 500 votes. And then I won my last one, which was this past year, and I won that with like 4,500 something odd votes.
So the people you were running against, were they like incumbent? Were they there for a while and had been there and needed to move into the next? Yeah.
So for when I ran for mayor, it was all new people. The mayor at that time, she got booted off during the primary. So it was 2 new people, Richard Abraham, George Bray. And George Bray went on to win that. And then that next city commission election, it was the 4 incumbents. And then a former commissioner jumped in. So that was Buzz Smith. And he basically knocked everybody else down the ladder. And then I was under one of the current commissioners at the time that got knocked off. So, yeah, that was that one. And then this past election, I'm sure you saw the news with the commissioner that said the racial stuff and things like that. So he ended up running for mayor. So that made his seat open. So there was only 3 incumbents out of the 4 seats. So that was just a wide open seat for me. And I got in there and took it. So, and there was 6, 7, let me see. Trying to make sure. I think there were 7 people running total. Yeah. And so out of the 3, there were incumbents, and then there was 3 newcomers. No, that's 6. Yeah. So 3 newcomers and 3 incumbents that were in that election. And I was the top vote getter out of the newcomers.
So did you have any kind of, let's say coming in as a new person, did you have any kind of, was there a lot of support, or did you see it more like an uphill battle,
Well, honestly, during my first run for commission, even when I ran for mayor, I was super new. I was only 21 years old, and people saw me as just some young kid, and they didn't really know who I was, my background and things like that. So that was kind of the first step of getting my name out there in that way. And then when I ran for commission, same kind of deal, but more people were like, okay, he's serious. He's still wanting to make a difference. He's running. He's trying. And at that time, trying to remember because it's been so long now, like it feels like it's been forever, but it was really only 4 years ago or so. But it wasn't really an uphill climb. I really felt like I was going to win. Like I felt in my heart like, oh, I got this. But even then, because COVID during mayor, I wasn't able to go door knocking. There wasn't many events like it, and I didn't know what I was doing. First time running for office, so it was all brand new to me. But then for that city commission the second time, I was going to more events, meeting more people, and growing that network. But I still didn't have such a great network as I did this last time. This last time, man, the community was so much behind me because they saw like, okay, he's serious, he's real. And also I was in the process, and I did get my master's degree in legal studies. So I'm the only candidate or the only person at that time that had any kind of legal background in that sort. So that really helped push me. And then I was just volunteering. I was doing everything. Like I got my hands in everything I could because I was networking with more people, figuring out what I should be doing. And it was just wonderful just being in the community. And I finally, found that connection with the community, and they welcomed me in and got me in there. So
that's great. Yeah. And that's something we were talking about earlier is those connections. Sometimes we look for, in my opinion, that we're always looking for the angle of what this exact moment can do for me. Like the conversation you and I are having, neither one of us are going to walk out here with a check, unfortunately. But those connections that you make with those people and putting yourself out there, and sometimes that takes time and a lot of investment, in yourself. So, but now after you got in, and I know you've only been in there 5 months, 4 months, something like that. So once you're there, and I'm not, again, we're trying to see inside your life. So do you have like assistants? Did you have people there that would say, okay, did they just go, here's your office? Commission. Yeah, just go commission. Or how did that work?
It was a great eye opener because, being outside of office or in government, you really don't know what's going on, because there's been a lack of transparency. People aren't doing what I'm doing now. But there was actually an orientation. So I went through a whole orientation process, and I'm sure that Paducah is kind of different than smaller towns. They may not have this because we have a great team, city manager, assistant city manager, city clerk. Everybody there is amazing. And they got me in there, and it was about 2 weeks that I went, early morning meetings till the evening some days, meeting each department head. So we have about 7 or 8 departments that we're over, which is the fire department, police department, public works, parks and recreation, finance, HR, and so on. So I got to be introduced to each department head, which is the directors there, because we, as a commission, we oversee all of them as well. So and they gave me the rundown of every department. It was like the term they kept using was the water hose, like open up the water hose or something, like drinking from the water hose. That's what they kept saying. So, and seriously, it was because it was a lot of information, and they gave me packets like it was so much, man. And it was amazing and very eye opening, especially for someone my age. I'm 26 right now. And just now when I was going through that orientation, I'm like, okay, this is real. Like I'm sitting here, one of the bosses of a whole entire city. But they did a great job of introducing me to the position. And then also Kentucky League of Cities is a organization, which is basically all the city, whichever cities are a part of it, but there's hundreds of cities in Kentucky that are a part of it. And they have trainings and things like that for elected officials. And because this was a major election year with the presidential election, they had a city officials academy. So I went to that in Lexington, Kentucky, and it was about a 3-day event. Me and Commissioner Henderson went up there with our assistant city manager, and it was like a schooling, it was like being in college for elected officials. So there was mayors, commissioners, councilmen all up there. And they just broke it all down, went through, legal things. They just broke it all down. And that was a great opportunity to kind of prepare me for the position. So, yeah, it was a lot.
Well, I'd say having a background in having a master's in legal, you broke a lot of things down. So you kind of understand how the processes work. And
my degree, so one thing we did go over local government, but the majority of it was like state and federal government. So, of course, every locality is different, I guess, depending on their size and things. There's so much that goes into it. But I did have a lot of knowledge when it came to the state stuff. But I do plan to run for higher office later down the road. So it definitely is. That's a great benefit. But it's interesting because, you see legislators like your congressman and whatnot. A lot of the stuff we do as a commission. Like it's, trying to not make deals, or what's the word? Whenever you're lobbying or, wanting something done, you go to a commissioner and be like, hey, will you support this and things like that. So it's still some of the same stuff, but just on a smaller scale.
So now you said there's how many other commissioners?
4 total.
And so when something comes across, you guys all vote on that, or yeah, okay. Yeah. And so with there being 4, yeah, there could be some deadlocks there, I guess. And I guess it just goes out at that point. How does that work?
So the mayor and the 4 commissioners, we all get an equal vote on things. So it's not like I said, not like a city council where the mayor can, break a tie or whatnot. Well, he still can because he's the 5th person out of it. But for the most part, we have a great team of commissioners and the mayor. Like we all get along very well. And a lot of the things that come up are things that, we're here to represent the community, so our decisions are based off that, or at least in my part so far, what I've experienced, and really no issues other than it's funny. There was it was a decision about somebody wanted to turn their home zone into like a residential into a mixed use kind of zoning, and that was the first time we voted like where we had kind of a split vote against each other, but it still was no animosity. It's not like, oh, we're angry at each other. It's just the business, how we feel we should represent the community. But
so, and I'm asking a lot of odd questions maybe, but I'm really trying to get a grasp on what you guys do. So now your position, the mayor will make decisions with you and your group. And they have other things that they'll be making decisions on without you involved? Is that how that works? Are you guys like the problem solvers or the budget setters or all of it?
Yeah. Paducah is kind of a rare breed. There's only like 14 cities in Kentucky that are commission based. And, that's why I didn't even realize until I really got in there. I'm like, okay, so it's really different. The mayor is kind of like the figurehead. So he's kind of like, when you think of a city, you think of the mayor, you don't really think of the commissioners, and like business deals and things can go to him. But at the end of the day, we all have a decision on that. So and then there's different occurrences, like a state of emergency, the governor will go through the mayor's office, and just streamlining things like that. So that's where he comes into play. But like in other cities, which is most common, the mayor is kind of that one he's the executive branch basically, and the council in that form of government or the legislative, but in our form we're the executive and legislative, but the mayor's more of the figurehead that kind of people go to. And that's why I'm trying, I do a lot of social media and putting out content and just being transparent and getting the community more engaged, because I'm younger and I'm more tech savvy when it comes to things. So I'm trying to bridge that gap, because as commissioners, people don't realize how much authority we actually have. Like, we have equal power to the mayor. I try to make that clear with people, and not to knock the mayor's position or anything. He earned that spot and he has a lot of responsibility because he's there more full-time than the commission, because we're technically part-time, but we get our salaries based on full-time employment and a lot of stuff like that. But I honestly, people ask me, what do you do for work outside of this? I'm like, man, I'm doing this full-time, honestly, because I'm doing so much for the community. But I can keep talking. I almost got off track. Where was
we were just you were telling me how the commission works with the mayor here
yeah. So just at the end of the day,
with this similar amount of power between each one of them.
Yeah. And then we have 2 commission meetings a month. So we meet the second and fourth Tuesday, 5 p.m. at City Hall. And that's where we make the decisions. So whatever's going on at like the sports complex, I'm sure you've seen that. Before I got on, there was stuff with like the hotel downtown and tearing up the parking lot, and big decisions like that. And then budgetary decisions. So we all equally vote on the budget, which will be coming up in May. We got like $157 million budget that we got to go over and things like that. But honestly, one thing I learned is that our city employees do a lot. And also backtrack, we're a city manager form of government. So there's 3 forms of government in Kentucky: city council, city commission, and then city manager. And with a city manager, we're a commission, but the city manager handles the day-to-day operations. So he's there at City Hall, and he's basically – he takes care of everything. Like, a lot of the stuff and Darren Jordan's our city manager, and he is phenomenal. Like, when I was meeting in orientation with the department heads, he could answer a question before they could. And, this is several different departments, and he has answers to all this. I'm like, and that just blew me away. But he's there every day. He's putting in the work, and he just, he makes our job a lot easier, because we meet with him every week before our commission meeting. So I meet with him on Mondays, and we go over the agenda that's coming up, and any questions or concerns I have, I bring it to him, and he'll get things solved for me and whatnot. So that really streamlines a lot of the process. So it kind of takes us having to, like, how to put it, like in a city council or a city commission form of government, they kind of do have to be more full-time and taking care, knowing, I don't know the right word to use, more hands-on. So having a city manager kind of makes it easier for us, so we can talk to him about things and get an answer, because he's kind of the expert in a lot of these areas. And then we can make our decision off of kind of his guidance, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with it.
Well, okay. Well, I want to circle back to that, because I have some tough questions that I want to ask too. Yeah. But I know you from the Oscar Cross Boys and Girls Club, and I've done over the years. I've not been involved as much recently because I've been busy. But over the years, I taught martial arts for them, did a little karate class there, and some different things. And I'm kind of fond of that group. And when I met you there, I could immediately tell you were very community-based oriented, and people, you're that guy, you're going to be right out there with everyone. So family-wise, I know you're from Paducah, so family, I did see where your great grandfather was an influence on you. Did you have other influences from your family? Or?
Yeah, so I was raised by my grandmother. My mom and dad are in my life and everything, but my mom was young when she had me. So just, circumstances of life. But my grandmother raised me up in the church. And my grandfather was very involved in my life. And my aunts, my Aunt Virginia, she helped take me to school in the morning. Then I give her credit for getting me into politics because WPSD would be on every morning. So I would get to see, community things and what's going on. And then so my family's been a great village in my life, getting me to where I am and things like that. And I give them a lot of credit for helping guide me in the right direction. So
now, community wise, or you do a lot in the community. I know that. Do you have any specific groups or areas that you're really kind of focusing on right now?
Yeah. So I'm a part of a lot of nonprofits. So one is Paducah Diversity Advocacy Board, and that was a board that was created kind of right after my mayor election. They were wanting, there was a big push for diversity and inclusion and things like that. So the mayor kind of wanted to form that group, but we ended up not joining with the city, and we're kind of a separate nonprofit now. And basically that group is just about diversity and inclusion in the city and just, being a ally for initiatives that help people. It's not about anybody being better than one another, but just unity. Unity is the big thing of it. And right now our mission has been really serving the other nonprofits. We have a quarterly nonprofit meeting where groups can come in, we can share resources, get to know each other. Because if we get to know each other, we can know, hey, we can actually work together to accomplish a goal. So that's something that they're doing now. And now that I'm in office, I haven't been I'm actively involved, but it's not something that I could put 110% into like I used to. And then also a New Breed Veterans Coalition. That's a new nonprofit that just started up recently. And it was a group of vets that came together and they just wanted to continue serving the community through several programs that they're starting up. And it's super new, so it's still coming together. And they invited me and I went to the meeting and I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely back this up. I served as well. So, but they, it's Ronnie Jones, Rob Shoemaker, a lot of people that are in that. And right now they're actually doing the Paducah Arts and Music Festival. So the Lowertown Arts and Music Festival was canceled. So they stepped up and decided, hey, let's do something to fill in that gap and not to take over the Lowertown or anything like that. The festival to just supplement something for the community because that's what it's all about. And it's a fundraiser for the group. For a lot of our programming, like the Essential Needs program that we're still trying to get a set name for. But basically people in need, will help them. So those are the two I'm with. And then the Hotel Metropolitan, the Uppertown Heritage Foundation, I'm a board member with them. They brought me in about a year and a half ago. And they just got $1 million grant from the Mellon Foundation to they got some updates that they're bringing to the facility and going to have a community garden and so much stuff going on there. But those are the three main groups that I work with as in the nonprofit world.
So, the arts, what was that again? The arts?
Paducah Arts and Music Festival. Yep.
So I told someone you were coming in and they're going to be involved with that too. A local nonprofit here, Kevin Davis. He told me to let him know he was already down there. So you mentioned you served in the military.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. So, man, it was an experience, but I'm grateful for it. So I enlisted when I was 17 with parental consent. Joined the Army National Guard with me and my best friends. We were in high school at the time because I joined when I was in my junior year, and I went to basic during that summer. But me and my friends, we wanted to serve in the military. We didn't know which one to join or what to join. We knew we wanted to go to college as well. So we were thinking about the reserves at that time, but then I came across a guy in JCPenney that was in the Guard, and he put me onto it, and I got with my recruiting sergeant. That was Sergeant Tate at the time, and he got us in there, and we start the ball rolling. And he helped us out a lot because I became an 88 Mike, so motor transportation operator. And that's because the unit was in Paducah right up by the airport. So whenever I was in college, I could come home, spend time with family on that 1 week in a month we served. So it all just worked out like that. And a handful of my best friends were joined in, and they're still in right now. But then I ended up getting out after about 5 years in, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that went on. And I've been so open about it because one thing, toxic leadership, there's a lot of that in the military, and me being the outspoken person I am, that can sometimes get you in trouble in the military because you're supposed to be conformed to things. But I don't like to linger on the negative of it because it did teach me a lot. Like I gained a lot out of the military, and during my time in basic training, my drill sergeants were phenomenal. They helped shape me into the man I am today because I was 17 at the time, my first time being away from home for 10 and a half weeks or 12 weeks after all that. So it was a great experience that helped make me a leader. And I think that really aided me in my political journey as well, because man, I don't think if I wouldn't have been in the military, had that time in the military, I probably wouldn't be, a commissioner now, because it instilled so much in me, a discipline, and just so much in me.
Well, I have often wished that I joined the military. I thought it would have been a good thing for me. But one thing that you were talking about diversity earlier, and something that rings out to me in the military is it does give you that opportunity, because you're going to be, you have no choice. You're there with different people, and you're going to have to make it work. I can remember my ex-father-in-law, he was telling me a story. He was in Vietnam, and he was coming through basic. Well, he had a lot of kids coming in from up New York and Jersey, and all these guys coming down, and he can remember watching them look out the bus windows, and they were terrified of cows.
Oh, wow.
They had hardly ever seen trees. They had been in the city their entire life. They didn't. So, yeah, you're forced to learn from each other when you're in a situation like that. And so that, again, that's one of the big things I like about you and what you're doing in the city, is you're trying to have that diversity. And for me, just briefly, I went to Tilghman for my part of my freshman and sophomore years, and my mother was a gypsy hippie. We moved all over, that's another story. But anyhow, I got moved there, and I lived down on 6th Street. And this was back in the 90, like 89, 88, 89. 6th Street was a different world back then. Yeah, and I was just this kid from Livingston County backwoods, and yeah. So I got taught some really quick lessons on diversity. Yeah, or maybe conformity. I don't know which one it was, but yeah. So I have always been a big. That's one of my most things that I wish that we had more of. Just when we, like you said, with the diversity, when we were able to get away from all of the differences, we then realize we can work together, and man, we can get so much.
Yeah, and that's what I hate with the current state of the world right now, because there's so much debate over DEI and things like that. It's been taken away from the federal government, but a lot of it's misinformation and misunderstanding. It's not about white or black, being better than one another. It's about fairness, equity, equality, and that's one thing I shared not too long ago. I'm like, I don't even think if we would have, kept DEI in these places, I don't think it's something we're going to need forever. I think that's something maybe 50 years down the road, we can finally, people that have that mindset that, prejudice people, they either die out or, be realize like, oh, that's wrong. I shouldn't feel that way about people just because they have a different skin color, because we're all one race, the human race. And
yeah. I think that if you leave that situation for long enough, you'll see it reverse. You'll see the opposite of it. And also, for me, with that, I was trying to think of something. I just lost my train of thought there. When you're going into something like that, so did you get a lot of that as a young man? Some issues with that, I know?
No, and that Paducah's great.
That's what I've noticed too about Paducah.
I don't think there's a lot of, I know some of the outskirts of Paducah there might be, because I've heard stories about Marshall, being a sundown town and things like that. Or
even there, I've seen when I was growing up. But I've seen that change so much over the years.
And I've never experienced anything crazy, but I have friends that have, or I have relatives that have, but I just, maybe because I'm not, I'm light skinned, so I get mistaken for Hispanic or a different thing. So maybe that's why, but still, yeah.
Well, I hope you're able to keep working on that. I'd like to bring everybody together. And, as far as where you were talking about what was it? The DEI?
DEI, yeah.
I can see a use for that. So in my opinion, and I've said this a lot of times, that I see one of the biggest people that people are prejudiced against, and not necessarily when we're not talking about race, but it's the poor. People, you see that poor person. I don't care if you're a young black man or a young white man and you're 19 years old and you walk into the wrong store, they're watching every move you make, and especially if you're not dressed a certain way, or fit a certain statue. I've seen that too. And that it's more, in my opinion, about a jumping off point. So I feel like that when I jumped off, my jumping off point as getting into the world was pretty low. And I know that that's an issue with a lot of, with diversity, there's that unfairness about where you actually start from. And my goal in life has been always to have my children to be able to jump off a little higher, than maybe their children. And I think that's something we all need to be working toward. I do see that disparage between where people can start. if you're starting your race and somebody's got a 100-yard lead on you, they don't have to run near as hard. So yeah, I hope you continue with that and bringing people together. So places, you were military, so I'm assuming you've been around a little bit.
So my basic was in Fort Benning, Georgia, and then my AIT was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. But outside of that, my home station was here in Paducah. So I didn't really that unit, they just got back from Poland a year or so ago because they got deployed out there, but I was out by then. So my buddies were gone, but I unfortunately didn't get to go on that trip. But outside of that, we did one trek where we were transporting 100,000 pounds of decommissioned explosives from, and I always get it mixed up. We were either going from North Carolina to Oklahoma or Oklahoma to North Carolina, but that was the most I traveled while I was in the military.
You done much traveling out?
Oh yeah, outside of the military, I got family all over the United States. So I've been to California ever since I was young. I got relatives in LA and Anaheim out there, so I'm out there all the time. And then just family road trips, St. Louis, different places, Florida. I haven't been to every state, but I've been to probably a good majority of them. And then also out of the country, I recently, in the past couple of years, went on cruises. So I went to Mexico, Cayman Islands, and then my last one, I went to the Bahamas. So it's really fun. It's different seeing different countries and things like that and how their lifestyles differ from us. So it was really eye-opening.
Well, too, you get to see just how the communities work together in other areas too. It's different quite a bit. I've traveled a lot, and I know that this area is considerably different. I mean, just about anywhere I go, if I'm a nice guy, if I go into a store, just about anywhere, I can win the people over. And if I do it 5 or 6 times, usually when I walk in, they're smiling and we're good. Not so much everywhere else. I did see some areas like that, but yeah, just seeing how when you say cultures, other states even just live together is kind of interesting. So I always said Illinois is like a different country.
Man, it was the other day somebody was talking about Illinois. It's like crazy. I don't their government is, I don't know, it's wild up there.
And as soon as you cross that border, man, you're in it just feels like you went somewhere. So
I don't like going there at all.
Now, there's some good people up there, but they're odd.
They got a nice bowling alley.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they do, right? So you're a young man, but say you've been around and you kind of have you've seen the world a little bit. When you are done with all this, where do you think you're going to settle down at? Are you going to stay here? Or
oh yeah, Paducah's forever home. Like, it's so affordable. That's one thing. My cousin, he's pretty well off, and he told me, like, why would I want to live somewhere where I'm having to pay, live paycheck to paycheck when I can live in Paducah and take those checks and travel wherever I want to go? And I see that now, and at Paducah we're growing and we're getting a lot more advanced. So it's not like 15 years ago where people were like, oh my gosh, when you graduate, move away, go somewhere else. So I'm trying to make that difference here too, especially for the younger generation, allow them to have something that they can want to stay home for and not have to travel out or move somewhere else. But no, it's a wonderful town. I love Paducah. Don't ever plan on leaving, and I can travel anytime I want. So that's the plan.
That's good. Yeah, I'd say that too. Now, other than the humidity. Yeah.
And the weather, oh my gosh, today it was like hot as ever, but then just 2 weeks ago it was snowing. I'm like, why can't we just have that perfect middle ground for at least a couple months? But oh well.
There's a saying about Kentucky that if you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Yeah. Literally.
Right. So any other hobbies or anything, or is it just 100% like committee and the people?
So no, honestly, during my downtime from my last commission race until this one, I was actually started professionally acting. So that was something I always wanted to do as a kid. Like, I had my talk show, Dujuan Thomas Live, and that was local cable access. That was my first time like being officially on TV. But then I decided, why not take it a step further and try something new? And then actually it's crazy how much stuff is filmed locally, like in Nashville, Atlanta, Louisville. So actually a film that me and my fiance both acted in, we were background characters. It actually came out this past week, Queen of the Ring. So I saw the trailer like a few days ago and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me in the trailer, like stuff like that. But no, that was a dream as a kid. God opened so many doors for me. My faith, has opened up many doors, and just trusting him, and he's opened up, man, it was amazing. Just in, I think 4 short months, I was in TV shows, movies, commercials, and traveling to Mississippi. I did a 4-day trip down there for their advertising. It was like for the city of Oxford, Mississippi. So we were on billboards. Somebody saw it in Nashville. I had to drive down there and see it. Like me on a billboard in Nashville from an acting gig in magazines. Somebody, literally, I was at home and they sent me a message. They was like, "Is this you?" And they showed me the magazine. They sent me a picture of it. I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." Like, so it was amazing doing that. And now it's funny you bring that up because next week I'm actually going to Atlanta. I got picked up for a reality show. So I'm going to be down there hopefully for a week and win some money. So it's like some kind of, they're keeping it a mystery. It's interesting though, but it's kind of like
I'd want
amazing,
some details.
kind of like Amazing Race. I guess that's the one I hear people talk about because it's the same casting company that did that. So it's going to be an experience, and I'm looking forward to that. And that'll be my first reality TV show kind of gig. So exciting stuff.
That is cool. That's something I always wished I had got into too.
Oh, never too late. Hey, Facebook groups. That's what I found them. And literally local Facebook group or Tennessee casting, Kentucky casting. You just apply and either yes or no. And there you go.
The world's a lot smaller place now. Yeah. So did you, other than that, you got like a manager or you just kind of do it yourself?
No, that's the kind of thing I was grateful for, saying God opened up doors because I didn't have any agent. I don't have, because that costs money. Whenever you have an agent, they take their cut. I was doing it all myself, submitting for myself, just sending those emails in and, it was just opening up. So yeah, it was all self-made.
Yeah, cool. So I hear you're talking a lot about your faith.
Oh yeah,
I like to hear that. I like for someone, whether or not we believe the same way or see things the same way. I'd like for someone to never hesitate to talk about stuff like that because, I think that the world has gotten so stale on that as well. I think we tend to try to find a way to hate whatever we can. Yeah. And I've experienced that, just in business in the last 5 years. I've had a lot of things come my way and it's almost like, is there something else going on here? I can remember a few mornings ago, I'm like, okay, I've got it. You can let up a little bit, maybe pick on somebody else. But, I had a guest in here recently coming back to do another class. So, let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your faith and what you believe.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the church, We're Memorial Church of God in Christ, North 11th Street, Paducah, Kentucky. Predominantly, it's a black Pentecostal form, of church, whatnot. And, raised in that all my life. And I think, I know that's what kind of helped me in my service field as well, wanting to serve others. I used to help the elders up and down the stairs and just different things. I would always find ways to help out, even though I was kind of a bad kid, but I've gotten better. And yeah, just growing up in church and, as you grow up, you really don't understand that relationship. You go there, it's so, it comes, routine and you're just used to, I got to wake up on Sunday, got to go to church. But as I've gotten older, I realized it's more of that personal relationship, that personal connection with Christ and just understanding that and, trying to be a better you every day and stop trying to judge everyone else for their faults, their sins or whatnot and worry about yourself while also spreading the gospel and spreading that light. You can always spread the light without bringing somebody down. So that's what I try to do. And, I'm no minister or nothing, but I try whenever I get the opportunity, I, sprinkle a little Jesus in there somewhere. So, and especially with my platform, that's one thing I always, give honor to God on everything I do. Like I was just speaking to the kids at Morgan and I can't remember the question they asked me, but I told them, God, keeping God first. I think they asked how I've become so successful. It was something like that, but keeping God first, like that's what's really helped me and having that foundation in Christ, as the base, and everything else goes from there. So that's been a driving force in my life.
Yeah, I spent a good portion of my life in a Pentecostal church, a Holiness Pentecostal, and then when I remarried, my wife is Catholic, and so we experienced quite a few things. And she would talk to me about it, and I'm like, you have no idea. And there used to be a preacher, I think he was in Texas, Tony Evans, maybe. He was a big church. And it was Pentecostal, and he was one of my favorites. And I let her listen to it one day, and it's a really different situation. Yeah, I did have something disparaging though about the Catholics. Is they're really So the Catholics kind of take a hit sometimes. And we went to, because Catholics are Christian, and I know that some beliefs are different, but at the same time, and we went to get a necklace for our niece to have First Communion, went to a Christian bookstore, and we went in there and we were like looking around, and then the lady asked, what can I help you with? And she said, well, we're looking for something for our niece's communion. She says, oh no, this is a Christian church or a Christian store. I'm like, wait a minute, So I think, that judgmentalness, I think it happens even more so between churches than it does between somebody judging someone for their sins. I think it's easier to judge another church because even when you're judging someone for something you may consider a sin, you're like, oh yeah, there's something inside of you knowing I'm not that much better than that. Everyone has those things in their lives. So,
and that's one thing, I'm still active in the church. I serve in ministries, House of Hope ministry. They brought me in during COVID to do their live stream stuff, and I've been there ever since, helping them out. Stewart Girl Ministries, I do her online ministry and thing. Just using my talents. That was a big thing, using my gifts to help uplift the kingdom. But so many people get stuck in like that. Church is their God, really. Their denomination is their God. Like they may have that personal connection, but it gets blurred. Church becomes an idol to them. Like, because I grew up in the church where you got to wear suits on. You don't got to, but we wear suits on Sundays and things like that. Of course, come as you are, but the standard was wearing suits and ties and things like that. And then as I got older, I started going to different churches, experiencing new things. Like when I was in college in Louisville, I'm like, oh, like this is kind of, not ritualistic in a negative sense, but it is kind of that ritual, like where you got to do this, you got to be in this order. Things got to go this way, when it should just be that, and not knocking churches or anything or ministry, because I enjoy ministry, but it's that relationship. At the core, it's got to be that relationship with Christ and just having that personal relationship.
Yeah. I've always thought of church in this way, in a kind of a way of, and I don't try to guide my children in any particular religion. I want them to I'll tell them how my experiences and how I feel about it, but I want them to find their own way. I find so often at churches, the people, when they are debating things with you, they're basing that on what their family, they believe in what they were taught to believe. So, sometimes that I always say the biggest sin word in church sometimes is why. And I guarantee you ask most any minister why one time too many, and you'll find out why that's a bad one. So, yeah. So moving on, let's see. Your biggest stress right now?
Good question. It's funny. I think the kids, when I spoke at Morgan, they asked me a similar question, like, how do I handle stress or, that comes with the job? And I'm like, I really couldn't answer it because I don't stress myself out. I guess I've learned to just not care in a negative way, like, oh, I just don't care. But like stuff doesn't bother me the same as it may bother other people. Like I don't let things bring me down. I don't let negative influences hinder me or my mood or things. And of course I'm human. So if something upsets me, it upsets me. But I find ways to overcome those negative mindsets or things like that. Like I try to find a humor too. Humor is a big thing for me. So I try to find humor in I guess bad situations or, negative situations. But really stress wise, I guess it's just time. It's just, there's so much stuff to do, but not enough time. That's maybe one of the biggest stresses, but I wouldn't say it stresses me out like I'm sitting up worried about it. I'm gonna relax, go to sleep,
It'll get done or it won't.
Yeah, it will be. So, really, nothing I can honestly say other than maybe just needing more time to do stuff.
Yeah. I get that. I run multiple businesses, and I did see a clip of Jerry Seinfeld one time. Someone was yelling to him on the street, like, what do you do with all your time? How do you make it? And he's like, I have the same amount of time as you, and so I've always tried to fall back on that. Okay. Yeah. You just got to really plan it out. So what do you really enjoy doing other than acting? And now I want to give you some caution here. Over your shoulders, your beautiful fiance. So, and by the way, congratulations. And tell me, before you answer that, tell me a little bit more about that. Your fiance.
Yeah. So we've been together for a few years now, and she's been my backbone in my campaigns and everything. It's just been me and her in every campaign thus far. Other than some volunteers this last one, but knocking on doors, going to events. She's been the person that's captured all the moments. Like, and that was a very great benefit for my campaign, because if I didn't have her doing those videos and pictures, people wouldn't have saw all the involvement I had in the community. So she's really been a great helpmate and all those things. So I'm super grateful for her.
And her name is
Christina. Yeah. So she's gonna stick around for a lot longer, I guess. So.
Well, having that support,
Oh yeah. Makes a difference, because even some of the other people running, they would mention that they're like, wow, like, and their wives, they're older than me, so they have more stable job, full-time employment, so they didn't have the flexibility we kind of had with things. So they really, were admiring her effort to help me in my campaigns. Yeah,
it's a team, So this is one of your biggest failures, and everyone has those, and it's a tough question to answer because we always like to talk about our good things. I've had several, but through those failures, I've had the most valuable lessons. I'm like, oh, I'll never do that again, or I should have done this, or I wished I would have done. And my failures have not only been just mistakes. I've made some straight out wrong moves on purpose, So do you have any big failures
I guess off the top of my head, I've had relationships that have failed, and through those times, I'm still young, so it was kind of more fresh out of high school kind of relationships, where you think you're in love, but you're, it's not that. But, I learned a lot out of those, how to communicate better. That's a big thing for me, is communication, because I was definitely lacking in that field. You let things blow you up. You don't know how to talk to people and things. So I've really grown in that field. And then also the campaign stuff, losing elections, because my mayor election, I don't know where I got the money from, but I sunk probably $10,000+ into that campaign as a write-in candidate. And a lot of it was putting money where luckily I didn't buy billboards, but putting money towards things that really didn't benefit me. And just, I learned a lot from those elections, like what not to do the next time. And that's why I always encourage people that want to run for office. They usually run one time and just stop. They never run again. I'm like, how do you expect to win?
How do you expect to figure it out?
Yeah. You lost. Okay. Next time, what can you do better? Where can you improve? So I think those are two main things, is just relationships, communicating, and then campaigns. Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of negativity through people who it's like they don't want you to, they're looking for you not to succeed. So they go, I get one. I grew up in a very poor family, and my dad worked for a paving plant for 30 some odd years. And as soon as I got out of high school, they're like, you're going to work at the paving plant. You're going to do this, is what I always tell people. I say, we want to get to that bass boat in our life and then we're done. But, shaking the boat or doing something different, people are just waiting. But for me, that's always been encouragement. It's like, I got to show them. And this has been my last 5 years have been pretty tough, but even though I stick with it more for those people who tell me I can't than the ones that tell me.
My haters have been my biggest motivators. And, I had, at one point I was in my best friend, Jalen, he really is a wise guy to be a little younger than me, but he helped me get past the point of like making it all about proving people wrong. So like, you can prove people wrong and feel good about it. But if that's your end goal, what's next for you? Where is that passion? Is your passion just proving people wrong? Is your passion succeeding? So I had to overcome that hurdle, because my passion was just, or I won't say my passion, but I guess it was just proving people wrong, trying to make myself look better and things like that, when it should have been serving the community. So that made a difference. Finally figuring out that passion really made a difference of, sure, I can prove people wrong, but I need to find, what's really in my heart. What should I be doing?
I've experienced that a lot too. And then also those people who really just have done you wrong so often. I always say that saying where if a snake bites you, are you going to chase it in the wood and kill it, or are you going to go get help?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's it. Instead of sitting there trying to beat something that's never going to change, just move on and let them keep talking, and
definitely.
So I want to circle back real quick. So, because I have a few other little questions, but before that, so what are you wanting? What are the things you're wanting to see change and become better in Paducah?
Man, good question. Because now that I'm in there, and that's one thing I learned, like I said earlier, was like on the outside, there's so much that you want done. Like you say, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But now that I'm in there, I see, oh, there's a process to things. It's not as clear cut as we would hope for it to be. But a lot of the things that community has brought to me, I've already started working on and getting things done. Like I was recently in the news about the bricks for downtown. They were taken up when they were going to build the hotel down there at the parking lot. And people didn't like, they had no timeline. They had no idea what was going on with those bricks that they paid for with, memories of veterans and family members that have passed on. And literally it took me sending one email. I came across Facebook posts that were talking about it. I said, have you gotten any answers? And they were like, well, it's not answers I like, and da 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 da. So I sent an email out. In a few weeks, those bricks were going back down in the ground. Like, it's really simple. Some things are simple for me to do, and all it takes is me just picking up that phone, making a call, or sending that email. But some of the bigger things is like our stormwater. That's been a big thing, flooding in the city. But that's like it's gone up because prices have gone up since then, since they originally did a plan on it. So what would have been 40 million is probably 60 or 80 million now. And I've learned that it can't all be done overnight, because if we fixed every pipe in the city or every stormwater drain, you're not going to be able to drive nowhere. You're going to be stuck in your house. They got to dig up every road. But the reality is, that I've learned, and I got to get some content out about this, is that it has to start from the outside of the city and go towards the river. Because if they start in the middle of the city and put big pipes or newer pipes there, because the pipes are from the early 1900s, or I think late 1800s in some areas. But if they replaced it with newer pipes just be in the middle of town, those smaller pipes from the outside of town are going to get there and they're going to bottleneck, and then you're going to have new flooding issues in that area, busted pipes or different things. So they're slowly getting that plan together. But one area that was a major area of focus for me was just more transparency and getting information out to the community, because the city is doing things. They're just not good at getting that info out. But it also takes people doing their part. Sign up for our email notifications. Literally, I've been pushing that heavily, because I can't get you all the info. You got to put in a little work. Like, you can go to the city's website, paducahky.gov, and literally just sign up for email notifications. And we send out a lot of info, but people just aren't signing. We've got a good couple thousand people that are on there, which is good. And then also our Facebook page, the City of Paducah's Facebook page, they have literally daily updates that go out of things going on, meetings and things. So people sometimes use an excuse, oh, the city's not, no, we're not knowing, things like that, but they're not doing their part to look it up. Like, we all got cell phones, we all got internet. So, but I'm pushing even on my platforms. Like, I use my salary to put out ads on Facebook. So whenever I make content, I'm reinvesting into that content to get it out to people so they can be informed about decisions being made, things I'm learning, as a new commissioner. So that's some of the biggest parts, just that transparency part.
I think that's one of the, looking at it, of course, you're coming into it new, so you still have that about you, but the frustrations of people are not knowing. And yeah, I do see with today's modern world, there's so many ways you could find that if you wanted to. But a lot of times people don't want to. I think some people just like
to complete. Literally, I'm learning that. And I don't get a lot of negative people don't come to me about things. Like, usually when people come to me, they're wanting me to help them, and I do. I'm able to help them. But literally, so much can be solved if you just looked it up.
Yeah,
literally.
Absolutely, yeah. I think sometimes too, I get frustrated with on a larger scale, say there's a country that our country's not getting along with, and I live, of course, the areas where I live. So, but I'll hear people like, "Oh, just nuke the whole," excuse my language, "nuke the whole damn country," and I'm like, why would you say? What benefit do we have there? Yeah, these people. The mass majority of people in that country have nothing to do with what that country is doing outside of itself. So, I get really frustrated. I just sickens me. It's a wrong direction. We go the wrong direction when we say things like that. And the same thing. I mean, it comes all the way down to a smaller community complaining but making outlandish statements. I once heard a man say that I'd much rather have an intelligent enemy than an idiot for an ally. So if I'm standing here trying to convince you of something, and this guy over here beside me says something just so off the wall, it kills it. You see him through, you see me through him. So, okay. So, what would you say? This is going to be one of those generic questions. What's the meaning of life?
Meaning of life. Man.
Yeah, I got to throw it out there just for you.
That's a good one. For me, it's having that relationship with Christ, because at the end of the day, you got to go somewhere. So, but I'm grateful for the life that he gives, and just finding that passion. What really makes a difference for you, or what do you enjoy? And I'm glad that I finally found that passion through service. But there's a lot of people that don't know what they want to do. So I think the main is just figuring out that purpose. What are you meant to do to make an impact here while you're here? So yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's it too. Unscripted. I think you really hit a good one there. So often, you hear different things, but finding that passion. They always say, find what you love to do for work, and you never work a day. That's not always so easy. It's not, yeah. But finding that passion, you can always have that passion in you to make a change, and it doesn't have to be outlast. It doesn't have to be a lineage that you leave behind, in my opinion, but just finding that purpose for yourself. And you see that when people retire. The people who retire and go home and kick their feet up, they're the ones that deteriorate the fastest. So it's in the human nature to do something. So now I can tell by when you walked in the first time I seen you, when you came in the door here, and I knew the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Dujuan, are you happy?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I can tell that, dude. I don't think anybody can tell that about you. Yeah, that's awesome too. It's contagious, and I like that because I need that in my life. Business is so hard right now, and I told someone earlier today, I was like, I just want to get this to this point so that I can go back to who I used to be. The joke and laughing and cutting up, and things get so stressful. It just takes all you got sometimes just to not, bite off your son's head for somebody else did, So I really appreciate you bringing that to the podcast.
And something that I've learned over the years too, because we all have our down times, but I can't remember the exact saying, but it was like, whenever you're at the bottom, there's only one direction, and that's up. So even if things are tough right now, they really can't get much worse if it feels that bad. So usually that's what's always helped me. Like if I'm in a tough rut and I'm like, oh my gosh, things are just not working out, I'm like, well, I can only look forward to better things from here, So it's kind of scary whenever you are on that high life though, and like everything's good. You're like, oh my gosh, the roller coaster might go back down, but while you're at the bottom, just always remember that you got to go back up. So.
I've often there's a syndrome, I don't know what it's called, but it's when you've had things in your life, different difficulties, that when things start going good, you're anxious about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're really worried. I do that a lot. So all right. So I have some new guests coming in. I got different things. What would you say? You had a show, right? That was that show again?
Yeah, Dujuan Thomas Live. So actually, I started that as a YouTube show, and I loved. Late night Jimmy Fallon, Jay Leno kind of vibe. So I would bring on a guest, a celebrity or someone local, and then I would have a musical number as well in the show, and then I would close out. So
that's cool.
Something I just wanted to do. Like I always wanted my own TV show, so I said, why not start it in my garage? So it was my great granddad's garage. I converted it into my studio, and just started filming. And it really was just taking that step of just doing it. I've been talking about it. I wanted to do it. Got the desk, got the logo, got everything made. And then from doing that, it got picked up for local cable access. So that was a blessing right there. So it really expanded from there and on local TV and just being able to help. And the thing was, too, it's not just about getting my name out there, which was a plus, but being able to give a platform to other people that are making a difference and tying it in. Because, I did my background celebrity interviews, like doing YouTube interviews and going to Comic Cons and meeting celebrities, Kane, Dog the Bounty Hunter, different people. So I had those connections with some celebrity guests, so I could tie that in because then people would come for the celebrities and hopefully stay for the locals, and give them a platform and raise them up. So that was the idea behind that.
All right. So do you still have that?
Yeah, so it's on YouTube. The show streams on YouTube and Facebook, Dujuan Thomas Live, where you can go to Paducah too, and then it's on Channel 2 in Paducah. So it kind of stretches out in our whole Western Kentucky area, but
we'll be sure
cable access. Yeah,
we'll be sure and list that on our description.
Yeah,
I think you had some other. So your website and what was that?
DujuanThomas.com. So DujuanThomas.com. And I've kind of converted that kind of where my updates go, but my main thing is Facebook, Dujuan Thomas, Paducah City Commissioner, or I changed the name. I think it's Dujuan Thomas, Paducah City Commissioner, but you can always look up Thomas for Paducah on Facebook, and that's where I do a lot of my content and push it out for the community. And then also I tie that into my website, DujuanThomas.com.
We'll make sure and list all that on our description. So any podcast questions you'd ask a guest if something interesting?
And you've had some great questions.
Yeah, I don't want to give you a heads up. I like spontaneity.
Definitely. And I've been on different podcasts. Sometimes they'll give me the answers beforehand and I'm able to kind of formulate my thoughts, but I like doing either or. So it really gets it right off the top of your head and, kind of more genuine answers, I guess, rather than rehearsing a little bit. So, but no, perfect questions. I enjoyed it.
Well, good. I'm glad you I mean, I was really excited to have you here. Just again, having that diverse crowd, we're really planning for this podcast to bring a lot of different people in, and you can't just have a lot of interesting stories if you have the same type of people. So I really appreciate you coming out. Much congratulations for your win and also for your engagement coming up. That's great. I'm excited for you guys. And anything in the immediate future you're working on other than those things?
No, that's pretty much it. Just making a difference for my community. And if anybody has any issues, you can reach me at dthomas@paducahky.gov.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So
one final question. So is this for your future? Are you planning on staying in politics for?
Oh yeah, this is man, I love it. And really, I've asked myself, do I actually want to run for state representative? Because do they have such a connection with the community? Because, you go up to Frankfort, have so many months out of the year to do the legislative work, but do you really have that connection like a commissioner does? Because I love this connection I have in my community. Like I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just a very great feeling knowing that I'm here for the entire community. So I think about it, but people want me to run for governor, but that'll be a couple years down the road. I'm not old enough yet. So
yeah, but it looks like you have a big future ahead of you. I hope you do go for the bigger one, because I think you're the type of person that even if you make it to the top, you'll still remember that person, in Paducah on whatever street that you used to talk to. I think that person will stay in your mind, and that person will represent the community that you're backing up. So again, thanks a lot for coming in, and we'll make sure and get all those on there, and hope to have you back soon. Yeah. And we'll have some more, I'm sure there's, how long are you in for commissioner? How long?
So, yep. And then it's in a couple months, it'll be campaigning time again. So it'll be November next year, that next election.
Well, hopefully by that time we'll have this podcast with some big numbers and you'll come back.
Definitely.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
Sir.
Awesome.
That'll work.
All right. Thanks again. Yes, and we'll do it again, guys.